Because right now, more than 1 in 4 workers have a side hustle. And it's not just Gen Z influencers. We're talking nurses, engineers, charity workers, and HR professionals. Some do it for the passion, some do it for extra income, but others also are doing it for as a career security, especially after COVID shook a lot of things up. Hi, I'm Sharonne, and welcome to the MaydayBaiden channel. And we talk about all things around people management to make it easier for you, the manager or the business leader. Today, we're diving into one of those awkward but essential topics, which is around side hustles. So let me ask you this. Have you ever had that moment where someone on your team casually mentions their little side business? Maybe they're selling candles, coaching, or suddenly you find them on TikTok and they're famous. And what are your first reactions to this? Be honest and drop in the comments, because I'm curious to see if it's, oh my gosh, this is cool, or oh no, this is a red flag feeling. In this video, we'll cover whether side hustles are a threat or it's an opportunity, what the law says around side hustles. Yes, we're going to talk about non-compete clauses and how to manage this without policing your team member. Plus, I've created a free downloadable guide on the wording and the policy checklist on what you can do to manage this in your organization. And the disclaimer is that this video is HR advice, is not legal advice. I am not a lawyer. And so if you're reviewing contracts or considering formal action, please seek professional legal advice. First things first, why is this even a thing? Why are we discussing this? Because right now, more than 1 in 4 workers have a side hustle. And it's not just Gen Z influencers. We're talking nurses, engineers, charity workers, and HR professionals. Some do it for the passion, some do it for extra income, but others also are doing it for as a career security, especially after COVID shook a lot of things up. So imagine your communications officer who's quietly growing a TikTok following and is talking about office life, not maliciously, but suddenly some internal issues are being shared and being made public. It's not impacting the work yet, but it's starting to make things a bit tricky. And then there's also another scenario where a social worker whose candle business booms during her maternity leave, and it's all fine until packaging orders starts to creep into her work hours. And so, yes, it can get messy. And for managers, yes, we're often left balancing the fairness, team morale, and protecting the organization. So it's all of these different parties that we have to protect. Truth to all of this is that, yes, side hustles can be a distraction. They can also be a motivation booster. A team member with a creative outlet might be more energized, develop new skills that they bring back to your team, and they feel more fulfilled and stay longer. But this only works if boundaries are clear. Without them, you risk missed deadlines, engagements dropping, burnouts because they're juggling 2 jobs technically, or worse, crossing into misconduct territory becomes a performance or a misconduct issue. The tip here for managers is that you shouldn't just jump straight into thinking that this is a problem. No, instead ask the questions and even do that with the individual directly in a conversational style, pulling out how this is affecting their well-being and performance, and also just checking whether there are any risks or conflicts that you both need to discuss. These are human conversations because it's not yet a disciplinary situation. So bear that in mind in that informal initial discussion. Now let's talk about what the law says around this. The first thing is that you cannot just ban side hustles. And you can only do that unless it's in the contract, and it even has to be proportionate. So the law generally allows people to work elsewhere in their own time, unless there's a solid reason. For example, there's a conflict of interest or you're using company resources. So a heads up to business leaders and managers. The UK government is limiting non-compete clauses to just 3 months post-employment, and this is a 2023 update. And so if your contracts are still saying 6 to 12 months and restricting people, you will need to fix that. And I've got you covered with the free downloadable guide I mentioned earlier. And also, don't just jump to conclusion that because someone has a side hustle, that means they're also being disloyal to your organization or company. Only time it becomes an issue is if they're working with a direct competitor, they're using your resources, or they are breaching confidentiality, like the example I shared around the communication officer. Unless they're doing any of these three legally, it might just be fine. But we do need to think about how they're running their business, because if they're running their business during your work time or putting your organization at risk, that's when you need to manage it properly. And remember, seek HR advice first. And if you need to escalate this, then you can also get legal advice. So let's go back to you as a manager. Once you've realized that this is what's happening and the person has got a side hustle, you need to look at the real issues that are taking place. And so you ask yourself these questions. One, are they delivering what they've been paid to deliver, or are they showing signs of overload? And you then also ask those questions around whether there's a reputational risk associated with the work that they do. And if the answer is yes to these questions, you need to then manage the impact of the side hustle, not the side hustle itself. Remember, that is not your business, but the fact that it's now seeping into work, that's when you come in as a manager. And this is why some companies have introduced moonlighting policies. And it's not necessarily to ban side gigs, but it's to encourage openness. So what should managers actually do? And let's go through this checklist. So first is to review your contracts. Look at the exclusivity clauses, intellectual property, information, confidentiality, and non-compete clauses. It's important to ensure that whatever wording that you use and the restrictions that you also apply is compliant with employment law. Second is to create a side hustle or side work policy, and that would provide guidance of what you need to do and how you need to consider your side hustle alongside your work. Third is to train your managers on how to have these conversations, because they are the line managers. They're the first one to have those informal discussions, follow it through, and ensure that the employee feels supported and is adhering to the company policies as well. So that is really important. So fourth is to focus on output. It's important, especially if you've had those informal conversations and you've had a level of transparency from the individual. You're not going to pay them back by over monitoring and clock or time watching. What you need to do is focus on the outputs, the work that they're supposed to be delivering. And then finally is to lead by example. I know the focus has been on the team member who's actually having the side hustle, but we have many managers, many business leaders, CEOs even. And I think one radio presenter, I think he's called Nigel Ferrari, sorry. Nigel Ferrari. It's not that I'm a fan. Just because I'm mentioning the name doesn't mean I'm a fan, but Nigel Ferrari has a side hustle. He has a business. I think he's a CEO of a garage or a car shop somewhere. And he talks about it transparently on his radio show. And if you've got a side hustle as a manager or business leader, be transparent and model good boundaries. In conclusion, side hustles are here to stay. And the smart move is to manage them fairly with clear expectations and not with fear. Not fear for what you impose on the individual, but fear for yourself as a manager. Stop being fearful of your team members who have side hustles. And listen, and if you want to build confidence as a people manager, come join the Mayday Manager membership community. It's made up of business leaders and people managers. We come together, support each other, talking through people management issues and ways in which we can excel as people leaders, whilst also supporting our well-being. And you can find the link in the description box. Like, comment, subscribe if you found this useful. Also check out my next video. In the meantime, keep making progress with care. Thanks for watching.